Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Well, it's now 8 o'clock on a Friday, roughly almost, I think it about is 24 hours since the end of the Toledo game. Obviously, a rough game overall for Pitt. I think right now we're going to be talking about a little bit of, really what went wrong, the injuries that currently Pitt has, but also, too, just some of the boneheaded mistakes that Pat Narduzzi and a bunch of coaches really made. But also, too, we find out news today, which technically we already knew, but Eli Holstein, Rasheem Biles, and Kyle Lewis are returning. We talked about in previous shows about the concern about Sincere Edwards. Well, immediately when the game ended, Sincere was in the transfer portal. We'll go into a little bit about that and things that I know from people I've talked to. And we'll talk a little bit about that. There's a reason why I've been saying there's been a little bit of concern about Sincere for the last couple of weeks, and we'll go over a little bit of that as well. Also, too, potential coaching changes on the staff, especially, too, on defense. What is the future of Randy Bates? But obviously, too, as you can imagine, we'll probably get a lot of questions about what the future holds for head football coach at Pitt, Pat Narduzzi. What does that look like overall? And what does Pitt currently need to look at for next year to make changes? What needs to change to get this team from a 7-0 to a 7-6 team to a team that really is consistently winning 9+ games a year? There's going to need to be some changes, but overall, can it be done? Yes, but only if there's changes. Will those changes occur? We'll talk about that tonight. Obviously, as you always know, how this goes. The show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA 15102. Guys, as always, go in there, get yourselves one of those Hail to Pitt Icy Light cans. Really cool partnership with the University of Pittsburgh. Obviously, Bill and Alan are truly some of the greatest people you'll meet. They're incredibly friendly. 2 Pitt men, season ticket holders, donors of the football program. They've done a lot of stuff for Pitt, but more importantly, the work they've done in the community as well. When you go to Colonial Beer, obviously, whether it's a tailgate, a party, anything like that, they have numerous selections. You guys have seen the posts I put on Twitter, and I'll be putting out more before the year ends. They've been incredible sponsors, incredible partners here with Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen, but more importantly, they're great people. And anytime you can support a small business, that's a major plus for anybody in the community. But more importantly, you're helping out Pitt men, and that's what matters. Go see my friends over at Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA 15102. Also, the show is sponsored by Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson, an attorney on your side. Right now, with many people struggling with the economy and rising costs, they're helping many people and businesses with their debts, and they're offering free telephone consultations to assess all options available to those who are struggling, no matter the type of amount of debt they are in. You can reach them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Obviously, I use Brian personally because, one, he's great at what he does. If I have questions for him, he certainly answers them in a timely manner, to say the least. The one thing that's great about Brian, he's a lot different from the larger firms because he cares about you, the individual, and the results that you need to be successful in the cases that you need to be heard. Also, too, if you have a question, he's able to answer those questions. And if he doesn't have the answer to that question, he's the best in terms of getting someone else involved to make sure you need the answers that you need to get to be successful. Obviously, go ahead and call Brian at 724-799-8404 or visit him at thompsonattorney.com. Again, another Pitt man. Incredible work he does in the community. His volunteer work, comes from a great family, has a great family. And Brian is truly one of the best, and beyond blessed to have him as a friend, and to say the least. So, again, give them a call at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Obviously, guys, before we get into the questions, obviously, in the super chats, again, like anything else, I appreciate everybody. Obviously, too, said it a little bit before on the previous show, but wanted to say it here. Wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. I'm truly thankful for all the people who support the show, to say the least. I can't thank you guys enough. It's truly been another great year of the podcast, and it continues to grow. Not just in the Pitt Network, but obviously global, just in terms of being able to talk about college football and different aspects of the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, between the contacts between coaches, agents, players. It's truly been incredible, to say the least, and we're growing at a rapid rate. If you haven't done so, you're heading over on X, you're heading over to the YouTube. Head over to YouTube, hit the like button down below. It helps with the algorithm, but also subscribe to the show because we're going to have 2 players coming on here pretty soon for interviews. And we'll be doing those live interviews, potentially live and maybe one recorded between Mason and Shep Turk. We'll be getting those guys on here, obviously big parts of the future. But we got plenty in store for the offseason, to say the least, and we'll be getting involved with a lot of that stuff. But obviously the show is what it is because of you and the support that you guys certainly have for the show. Obviously, the questions are already starting to come in here. Obviously, we got more and more people coming in. WRW Pitt, obviously always in here. Matt, Calvin Reed, appreciate everything. Guys, we'll get to the questions. Obviously, I'll get to the super chat questions as well. If you haven't seen below, super chat button down below, make a small donation to the podcast, and we'll be able to answer your question up on the screen. First things first, roughly 24 hours after the game, it still stings. Obviously, losing to Toledo is never a good thing. You know, I've seen, obviously, the comments throughout social media today. People have sent me, my DMs have been ringing all day. I mean, to say the least. I mean, holy hell. Guys, it's never good to lose to a team like Toledo, obviously. But also, too, we can talk about the major issues with the coaching, which obviously there were a blunder of them between Pat Narduzzi, Randy Bates, Cade Bell. There was just a lot of bad mishandling of that game. A lot of it to where Pat Narduzzi, we have seen over the years, time management, decision making on 4th and 1 at the 1 yard line. It was almost like a repeat of what happened against Penn State back in 2019. 2019, that was ridiculous. Going for a field goal there. They go for a field goal again versus Toledo at the 1 yard line, where if you don't get it, you hit a field goal, you're going into 2-point conversions afterwards anyways. You might as well just gone for it. You were closer to the goal line. He doesn't do it. He kicks a field goal. He doubles down on it in the post game presser, which you look at Pat. Obviously, I have my gripes with him. There's shit he does that just doesn't make any sense, to say the least. Last night was truly one of those that happens again. Shout out to the players that were able to play, that were not in the portal, weren't part of graduation. Obviously, Pitt was missing numerous on the offensive line. Obviously, down to our 4th and 5th quarterback. I think that needs to be talked about too. Obviously, if Eli's playing that game the full game, if Nate's playing the game the full game, if Julian Duggar starts the full game, and obviously Carlo had a really good tweet today too. Julian came out with one Power 4 scholarship, and that was Pitt. Obviously, didn't know what they had. He goes into the game, plays really, really well. I think he's earned himself the backup quarterback position going into next year. And I think if you're Pitt, you're probably pretty damn happy. I know I would be, because now you know what you have. You've got a guy who I think is a dual threat quarterback who can play. Certainly made some really damn good throws. I mean, I can't even stress how hard that is for a player, guys. For a guy that has not had any reps all year, when you're 4th or 5th on the depth chart, you're not getting any reps. You're going to get reps during practice, like for one-on-one team, for like the individual periods. Obviously, when you're throwing the targets, you're throwing with the running backs, you're throwing with the wide receivers. But when it comes to team periods, you're not getting any repetitions. This kid goes in there and plays his ass off. I mean, if you can't see the amount of respect that his teammates had for him during that game, I mean, it was truly incredible. So shout out to Julian Duggar. I think he's going to be a hell of an asset next year. I would certainly have packages for him. Also, too, you want to make sure you keep him healthy. You need to make sure your backup quarterback stays healthy. He needs to be healthy for in case something happens to Eli Holstein again next year. He's a guy that can certainly have packages, though, a lot like a Bo Pribula up at Penn State, getting him involved. I mean, he's a dual threat guy, especially, too, you're in the RPO game. I think he's special. Julian Duggar really has something special. Shout out to Carlo Zovko, Graham Wilbert. Those guys, when they were at Pitt, obviously Graham's still there. You want to talk about breaking down tape and seeing a guy that nobody else thought had the talent to play at the P4 level. That's what Pitt does. Pitt finds guys that you might say, in the grand scheme of things, says this guy can't play at this level. But guess what? You saw on a scale of what yesterday, people might say, well, it was only Toledo. I got news for you guys. When you go into a game like that and you have no practice reps, none. I mean, I can't talk about enough how well that kid played in the short amount of time he had to prepare. So shout out to Julian Duggar, and the sky is the limit for him, and we'll be rooting for him. But when it comes to Pat Narduzzi, we've seen these mess ups quite often. To say that people are upset about it is an understatement, and I understand why they're upset about it. They certainly should be upset about it. In my personal opinion, Randy Bates probably coached his last game at Pitt, not because they're letting him go. I think that he's going into retirement. From what I heard from people that were there was a huge contingent for Randy Bates there. Beyond what people think, I think that Randy Bates has done a really good job at Pitt. I think he has been a great add from coming over from Northwestern to coach at Pitt. But I do believe it's time for new blood. And for me, I would be promoting Corey Sanders. Corey Sanders should be the next defensive coordinator at Pitt. I think that this level for him is massive. He's an associate head coach. Obviously we still have Archie Collins. I think Archie Collins is at next level. Ryan Manilak is at that next level. But I think Corey Sanders can really take this defense to the next level in terms of, diagnosing a game plan, taking it to the next level, understanding where the pros and cons of the defense are, understanding where the strengths and weaknesses are of the defense, how to game prep. I think he could be the next level in terms of what Pitt needs to do to be successful. I think he should get it. I think probably in the next week or so, we'll probably hear about, Randy Bates retiring. And again, if it does happen, I can't thank the guy enough. He has been a hardcore guy in terms of being able to coach players up, recruiting players, developing players. He brought a much more aggressive style. He's still running, Pat Narduzzi's defense, but there's some wrinkles in there. I think Corey Sanders will bring more wrinkles, to be honest with you. I think that he's that good of a coach. I think he can be that good at Pitt in a defensive coordinator position. I think he can do really well. And I think that overall going into next year, this is really a make or break year. Obviously, before we get into Sincere Edwards, this is a make or break year for Pat Narduzzi. I think that we're looking at a situation where things are lining up to where this is the last dance. I think that the way that college sports is going, the way that college athletics is going, you're starting to see more and more head coaches really take that next route to go to another place. We've seen it with Dave Clawson. We saw it with Jeff Hafley. We've seen it with multiple college basketball coaches. Miami's basketball coach who made the Final Four last year, he's on his way out. He retires, mid-season, saying he can't deal with it. It's become too much. Tony Bennett out of Virginia, he said it was too much. You're looking at college coaches that are, in college football going to the National Football League. You have a rare instance of Bill Belichick coming down to the college ranks because from what I was told from coaches and GMs and people that I know and player directors of player personnel, Bill Belichick was never going to be hired in the NFL game anymore because the game has passed him by. He was too much control over who gets signed, who gets drafted. The NFL is going to a pecking order of there's a general manager that picks the team. The coach is there to coach the team. That's kind of what it looks like in the NFL. And a lot in college, you can have a lot more say on what goes on. He hired a guy like Mike Lombardi down there, who again, Joe Lombardi, who is a damn good GM, very well and intense, knowledgeable. I think they have a chance to be successful there, but I think it's a major risk. I don't think Bubba Cunningham wanted to hire him. I think there's a lot of donors and people that were behind closed doors that wanted him. That's a massive issue down there. But there are changes coming. I truly believe in heart of hearts, not saying it goes one way or the other, but I think that we could see the last year of Pat Narduzzi. I think that Pitt is really attacking this at full force. They've kept the guys they needed to keep. Obviously, Sincere Edwards, who I've been talking about for a couple weeks now, potentially going to the portal. I was contacted by a couple of agents and coaches outside of Pitt that said, hey, there's a player on your team that's contacting other teams. People really in his camp were reaching out to other teams. It is what it is. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. Hey, by God, God bless him. Pitt certainly paid him. If he wants something else, then hey, you can't come back to the table to renegotiate 2 or 3 different times. We've seen it in the past, and it's just not worth it. It just causes a problem for later on down the road. But when you can keep guys like Eli Holstein, Kyle Lewis, Rasheem Biles, Ryan Bayer, B.J. Williams, C.J. Lee, Raphael Poppy Williams, Kenny Johnson, those guys, and then Jimmy Scott, and then you have, Javon McIntyre, Rylan Gandy, Taman Lynham, Braylon Lovelace, who is going to be a massive factor, Cameron Lindsay, who's going to be a massive factor next year in the linebacker room, Jeremiah Marcelin, who's going to get more playing time. We're sitting here at this time of year where people are saying, well, this guy's leaving, that guy's leaving. A year ago, how many people were reaching out to me or telling me, well, Bengali Kamara left and Solomon DeShields left, and there's no talent in the linebacker room. And then you have a guy like Kyle Lewis, who was committed to Temple, decommits from Temple, goes to Pitt, and is now an All-American at Pitt. Rasheem Biles is pretty damn close to being an All-American at Pitt. There's next guys behind them. And that's a credit to a guy like Ryan Manilek, who people were on for a high duration of time, were on him, over him, saying he can't recruit, all this stuff. Well, you look at that linebacker room, it's about as deep as it gets. David Bruton's in that room as well. He's going to be a good linebacker. I think Jeremiah Marcelin can play all 3 positions. Cameron Lindsay, I know, can play all 3 positions. David Bruton, I think, is more of a middle linebacker than anything else. I think he's a hell of a run stopper. I think he's going to be very aggressive, loves violence, and I think he's just built for the middle linebacker position. I think overall, when you look at this team, they've held on to the guys they got to hold on to. And now it goes into the portal where they've now added Kendall Stanley, the offensive lineman, all AAC from Charlotte. There's another offensive lineman that's going to be committing to Pitt here roughly in the next week or so, from what I was told. So it's going to be 2 offensive linemen. They've got a wide receiver, Deuce. Let me see his name here. I always forget his last name. It's a Deuce Sparling. Let me see it here. Hold on. Deuce Spann, 6'4", 208. He's a guy that earned a starting position. He earned a starting position this year at Florida State, ends up getting hurt for the whole year. He's out. He's looking for his next opportunity. He goes to Pitt. He's a 4.3 40 guy. So he's got speed. Basically what Cade Bell is looking for. You have to have speed to play at the wide receiver position at Pitt under Cade Bell. They're certainly looking at tight ends. There's numerous tight ends that are in the market that they're looking for. They're still looking at offensive linemen. There's, again, a second one about to come in. They'll probably get 2 more after that. I think they're looking at probably 3 to 4 defensive ends now, with Nate Matlack graduating, Sincere Edwards hitting the portal. The Clemson defensive end that we brought in from last year hit the portal. He's gone. I'd probably say 3 to 4 defensive ends, because you still got, obviously, Jimmy Scott, who's going to be a starter next year. Chief Borders can back them up. Chief Borders needs to get better at numerous areas if he doesn't hit the portal. But I think there's probably about 3 or 4 positions there you could look at on the defensive end position where you need 3 or 4 more guys. You need what we've learned from this year. Pitt was 7-0 when they were healthy. After that, it went to shit immediately because the injuries were stacking. And Eli Holstein got hurt. And I think that when you look at a guy like Eli Holstein, they were 6-1. 6-1 or 7-1? 7-1 when he was playing, or 6-1 when he was playing, and then obviously when he played a full game. And then after that, it went to shit. I think that this team has held on to the right guys, but they got to be aggressive and go into the portal and get those guys. Now, that obviously has a lot to do with Alliance 412 and the funds that we provide to 412. That's why I've been so heavy on, you got to get after it. You have to support Alliance 412. And I had a guy who was basically got mad at me today on Twitter because, I'm talking about Alliance 412. I mean, guys, there's 2 options. You either support it and have a chance to be better next year, or you don't, and then you absolutely suck next year. That's really the only 2 options we have. I can tell you this. I'm an Alliance 412 member because I don't want to watch bad football. I don't want to watch this shit happen again. That's just my opinion. I could sit back and take the high noble road and say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna donate. I'm not gonna do anything. Just forget it. It's not worth my time. And then here we are again a year later, and then we're in the same spot. Every university across the board around the nation is having the same conversations. Obviously, when in April, if Congress passes revenue sharing and the salary cap at $22.5 million, then you're going to see Pitt really take off to where they're using university dollars, and it's probably going to be in that $18 to $20 million range. When Chris Bickle goes to ESPN and says we're going to be at the top of the line when it comes to revenue sharing and we're going to be nationally competitive, I think you take his word for it. He's not a politician. He's not a Pitt official. He's a guy who runs a business and loves to win. He's a natural born winner. Look at his businesses. So I take his word for it. And then obviously, too, Alliance 4-2 going in-house, you combine it, then you're really building momentum to where you have donations going to the program. You have Alan Green. There's a whole different number of aspects. But it looks like from the outside looking in that this is going to be an all-out push this year for Pitt going into next year because you have your quarterback. I've heard people all day, well, Eli Holstein dropped off at this certain portion. It stopped going here. You know what? There's progression to both guys. I think that there's going to be a lot of difference this year where Eli Holstein will now have a whole spring in this offense. He'll have all of OTAs during summer for these offenses. Then obviously you have a number of different guys coming through the portal for spring camp. You'll have those guys. This is the second year in the offense. You'll see improvement. Regardless, this year was better than what you saw the previous year at 3-9 where nothing went right. I mean, it was an absolute shit show from top to bottom with Cignetti. I mean, it was so bad. I mean, I would turn off the game sometimes halfway through because I had to go back and watch the game again for tape purposes. So when I talk to you guys, I know what the hell happened. But there were times I'd turn off the game and just be like, what the hell? And I still went to every game, last year. I mean, that was extremely hard. And I know there's a lot of you guys that went to every game and had to watch that shit. I mean, it was horrible. But overall, it is what it is. But I think that when you look at where Pitt is right now, it seems that from the outside looking in, that this is a last year push with this coach. And I think that overall, you look at this team and you look at a guy like Alan Green who comes in, who certainly loves to win. Anybody that I've talked to says he's extremely competitive. He's a diehard winner. He wants to win. He wants to make tough decisions. He loves building revenue. He loves building winners. Just saying, people can talk about, his record at Auburn. Auburn's a shit show to begin with. Look at his record at Buffalo. Look at the guys he's hired there. I mean, he's a natural born winner. And the guy, he's had a lot of success, whether he was at Ole Miss or Tennessee, and revenue sharing, building revenue, business development, corporate sponsorships, private equity. I mean, he's done it. Just my opinion. Pitman Zach 94, thank you as always for the super chat. Beyond thankful for your support for the show. Need to be aggressive in getting DNs and offensive linemen. We would think a guard and another tackle, possibly at a wide receiver, and safety, definitely a tight end too. So their needs in the portal are pretty simple. They need offensive linemen, defensive ends, probably another wide receiver, a safety, a corner, and then potentially, if it's there roster-wise, because you guys also need to notice too, if this passes next year, the rosters are going to be limited. You can only have 100 guys on your roster. That's it. Like, including walk-ons, everything across the board. They're minimizing how many players you can have on your team. So these coaches need to be understanding of what's really ahead. There is so much more going on with college football now than what's been happening the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years, which is another reason why you're seeing a lot of these coaches leave and a lot of these young guys come in. And preferably, I think there's a lot of guys who would certainly want this job, that I know would want this job, that would be very successful here. It's been a high topic amongst certain people outside of Pitt. I can assure you that. There have been a lot of conversations about it, just putting that lightly. But when you look at this team, a tight end too, I agree. When you look at the guard tackle position, Zach, I think Kendall Stanley will play tackle. I think that Ryan Baer is a guy who can play tackle or guard, depending upon where the need is. B.J. Williams a guard. Lyndon Cooper can play guard. He can obviously be the center. Caleb Holmes is a guy who can play center or guard. You obviously have a couple. What's his name? Not Hartman. Ryan Hartman, the tackle. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? He can play guard or he can play guard or center as well. I think they got enough guards in there. Obviously, Shep Turk's coming in. I don't expect him to do nothing as a true freshman. That would be unfair to ask him of that. But Caleb Holmes is a guy no one's really talked about. I expect him to really do some crazy stuff here this coming year. He's just physically. Ryan Coretta, thank you, Zach. Ryan Coretta can play guard. I think they're looking at more the tackle position. And I think Jackson Brown can also play guard. He can play tackle. Personally, I think Jackson Brown's actually pretty damn good. Same thing with Isaiah Montgomery. I think that people need to understand these guys are young guys this year that were thrown into the fire. They need to learn. They need to continue to develop. That's on, obviously, Coach Darvo to continue to coach those guys up and develop those guys. I also think, too, Cade can really work on his pass protection schematically. Against West Virginia, against Boston College, against Clemson, we were running a pin pull scheme where we have 5'8" receivers trying to block down on defensive ends. That shit's not going to work in P4. Just we got to fix that. But there's plenty of stuff behind the scenes that they know in between the guard and the center positions that they have. I think they're more worried about the tackle positions and getting those guys in. But more importantly, they're adding guys through the portal because they want to have depth like what we didn't have this year. But more importantly, you want guys that have had college reps on the offensive line. So if somebody does get hurt, you have another guy that's sitting there for you. That's kind of what they're looking at. At the safety position, you got Javon McIntyre. I expect him to fully bounce back for next year. He had a bad game against Toledo. I expect him to bounce back. Jesse Anderson should bounce back next year. Cruz Brookins had himself a hell of a game. He had an interception in that game. The turnover machine, we saw him develop this year. He's going to be a guy to watch for next year. Wouldn't be shocked if you see him be a starter next year. At the cornerback position, a guy to watch for, Shadarian Harrison. I expect him to step up next year. Tamarian Crumpley, I expect him to jump up next year. Rylan Ganny back, Taman Lynham. You got about 4 or 5 guys right there. Maybe add one more veteran cornerback, add another veteran safety in there into that mix. You guys might need to help me with the name Trent from Georgia Southern. He's a Whitfield kid. I'd like to see him come home. He was all AAC or something. I can't remember his name. He was damn good during the year. Would like to see him get a look from there. But obviously, you got to add guys through the portal. Obviously, Sincere Edwards was getting cash from Pitt, obviously, so that's more money opened up there. But I think that when you look at college football, the way that I look at it, the way this team is successful, especially on defense at Pitt, the way that they run quarters defense, no help over the top, you're playing man-to-man coverage quarters defense, your defensive line has to be ruthless. I mean, you need to knock the shit out of people up front. Pitt's defensive line needs to get more pressure. So, in my opinion, their money and their resources to this point are offensive line and defensive line. And I think the D-tackle room's good. You've got, Sean Fitzsimmons coming back. He's going to have a hell of a year next year, I think. Nick James is coming back. You've seen how well he developed this year under the tutelage of Coach Doust. Obviously, then you have Francis Breu, who's going to be a massive part. Good to see him coming back. I think he's going to be an absolute star at Pitt. I think he's just touching the surface of what he could potentially be. You saw him make numerous plays against Toledo, physically dominating people. He's going to be good. You still got Ty Uhas in that room between defensive tackle and defensive end. Isaiah Neal still at the defensive tackle position. So I look at the tackle position, and I think it's good. But to be in a Pitt defense of how they play, your defensive line needs to create pressure, and it needs to be ruthless. You've seen previous years under Charlie Partridge where just it didn't matter who we had in there. It was almost like no matter who we had at the defensive end position or the defensive tackle position, there was 1 or 2 guys that was just creating havoc. I mean, just wrecking in the backfield. I mean, just all-American type of players. At defensive end, it was Rashad Weaver or, Patrick Jones or inside Kalijah Cansey or Jalen Twyman. You had guys like that. Or you had run stuffers like David Green, Devin Danielson, guys like that who were really good in the middle. You got to go out there and you got to be able to really suffice and really solidify your defensive line and your offensive line and play bully ball up front. Be aggressive and knock the shit out of people up front. Those are the best college football teams across the board. Pitt has their quarterback. Get your offensive line figured out, get your defensive line figured out, and the rest of it takes yourself. And if you can figure out your defensive line and get 3 to 4 guys in there, you say, man, can really create havoc. The kid from Utah State, what's his name here? The kid from Utah State, Blaine Spires. We're leading for him. I would love to see him here. 6'4", 255 pounds. I think he could be an absolute stud. UAB safety, Adrian Maddox. That's another guy to watch for. There's guys they're looking at. There's an offensive lineman that I was contacted about at a Ferris State. 6'5", 323 pounds. Could play at the tackle or guard position. Very physical. Very athletic for a guy that big. Can move, great footwork. I think he could be really good if he goes to Pitt. There's a number of different ways you can go with this. But to be successful in the Power Four, you have to be able, and every team, it's not just Pitt, it's every team across the board. Look at anybody. I can pull up tape from Alabama, Georgia, Georgia Tech. Look at Georgia Tech. That's actually a prime example. Georgia Tech, look how well, if it wasn't for the referees absolutely screwing the pooch with that game, that should have been a game where Georgia Tech won because they just absolutely manhandled Georgia and kicked the shit out of them on both sides of the football. If you go back and you watch that tape, Georgia Tech under Brent Key is just absolutely physical up front. I mean, that was honestly a display, like a clinic tape of how to just absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage. I think that that's a great one to watch for. But overall, I mean, USC, they're still looking for offensive linemen. You look at guys like Wisconsin are looking for offensive linemen. Tennessee are looking for offensive linemen. Ohio State's looking for offensive linemen. And Michigan State went the route of offensive linemen. They went to Western Carolina and got Caleb Carter to go there from Western Carolina to Michigan State. Oklahoma went to Western Carolina, got Derek Simmons. Again, if Derek Simmons was not offered a massive bag, he was going to Pitt. I was like 99% sure he was going to Pitt until they swooped in last second and threw a shitload of cash at him. That's another one. Yeah, guys, I promise. I know I'm going to get to more of the comments here. I'm just going through a whole monologue of stuff here. I'll go through it here. I'm going to try to get to all the questions here. Yep, I don't see any more super chats in here too. So I'm gonna try to go through all these guys as best as I can. WRW Pitt, smash the like button and subscribe. Thank you. If you're over on X, head over to YouTube. Hit the like button down below. It's very easy. It's free. Hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm. And subscribe to the channel and share the show. Matt, good question here. Any word on Jordan Bass? Yeah, pretty simple. He's in the portal. He's not coming back, brother. He entered the portal. I can tell you this: there was some tampering stuff going on there to get him to go to a certain school in the state, but he didn't go there. He's looking for an opportunity to play. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes to Norfolk State with Michael Vick. Michael Vick is, if you guys don't know, Michael Vick is the new head football coach at Norfolk State in Virginia. Obviously, he's from Virginia. He's looking for an opportunity to play, guys. I mean, he was on the depth chart. He was a backup on the depth chart. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining. Like, that's why the portal was there. Like, I totally understand why he went in the portal. Do I think that Jordan Bass could have been really good at Pitt? Hell yeah. But when you're not getting enough playing time and there's other opportunities out there for you to get ahead, I get it. Now, the transfer portal was not meant for starters who are starting on teams and then going to another team to just get extra money, but then not pan out, maybe not get as much playing time. That kind of stuff doesn't make any sense to me. But Jordan Bass will probably go to a place, I think, closer to home, to a place where he's going to play immediately. That's probably the best route for him. Again, Norfolk State, Virginia Tech has offered him. I would expect him to be one of those two schools. I think Norfolk State and Michael Vick would certainly love to have him down there. Sacramento State hired Brennan Marion. He's brought in a number of different guys through there. He's going with a lot of his connections down there. So I don't expect Jordan Bass to come back. I wouldn't expect him to, because we have at least 6 or 7 guys in the linebacker room that are going to play next year. And he wants to play immediately. So for him to play immediately, he had to go somewhere else. He's a damn good football player, but he's got to go somewhere else. He wants immediate playing time. A lot of online discussion regarding Narduzzi and his future. I think he's getting a lot of unwanted hate for a guy that's built a consistent program. A few bounces our way, and we might be in the college football playoff. Yeah, but at the end of the day, too, yeah. I mean, if we stay healthy, I get it. Yeah. If Brandon Taylor doesn't get hurt, if Eli Holstein doesn't get hurt, if Desmond Reed doesn't get hurt, if Lyndon Cooper doesn't get hurt, since your Edwards was out for a little bit of time, he doesn't get hurt. I agree. But we just got crushed with injuries. I mean, on the defensive side and the offensive side. I mean, I think that I understand what they're saying. I understand, though, the portion of the fan base that understands, hey, we're a 7-8 win team. And that's kind of what we've been. Pat Narduzzi really had 2 great years. They had an 11-win season in 2021 with Kenny Pickett, a Heisman candidate, won an ACC title. And this line of college football playoff era, if this was the college football playoff era back then in 21, Pitt would have made the playoff, would have played in for a national title. That would have been awesome, but we didn't have it yet. The next year, obviously, with Whipple doing do I agree with pushing Whipple out? In a way, no, but I understand it because he was helping Scott Frost recruit at Nebraska while he was still here. There was a bunch of shit going on with that. At the end of the day, though, Narduzzi's not exactly the easiest person to work for and work with. But then again, it's like every other head coach in the country. He hires Frank Cignetti. He just hired the wrong guy. They still won 9 games. They were 20-7 in 2 years. That's great. But then these last 2 years, it's just gone to shit with, between the NIL stuff. They went wrong at the quarterback position with Phil Dracovic. I was a Phil Dracovic. I thought he was going to be good under Cignetti because he threw for over 3,000 yards in a Cignetti offense. He comes here. The injuries were still too much. He never recovered. He had mental lapses. I mean, he just wasn't the same guy. And then Christian Veyer wasn't the guy. That was bad. The creativity on offense was just horrible. It was a regular Bill Walsh 1980s pro style offense. That wasn't good. So really, in reality, I think overall, when you look at his overall tenure, he's had 2 good years. Besides that, in 10 years, you've had 8 average to mediocre years. I get it, though. Now, what he has done, which is a benefit to him, because I don't care what anybody else says, you got to show the good and the bad. He has raised the floor. He brought stability to Pitt where at a time where Pitt was just an absolute wreck. Pitt was a wreck with coaches going through the system like you wouldn't believe. Issues galore. We should have never got rid of Dave Wanstead, in my opinion. People can say whatever the hell they want. I don't think we should have. He brought stability. He raised the floor. The facility change here. If you guys would have seen the facilities when Wanstead recruited here, if Wanstead had this level of commitment from the athletic director and the chancellor, we would have been a 10-win team for 3-4 years consecutively. How Dave Wanstead was recruiting. I mean, if there's one thing that Dave was great at, that guy could recruit out of his fucking mind. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the stories that I've been told from behind the scenes of how well he recruited, especially too, talk about guys he brought in like Doran Dickerson, who became an All-American, Jason Pinkston, who went to the NFL and played in the NFL for 11 years, Mike McGlynn, who was an absolute stud, went to the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles for 8 to 9 years. LaShawn McCoy. I mean, LaShawn McCoy wasn't even recruited by anybody. I mean, he was out there in a prep school. They bring him in. I mean, just Dave Wanstead had his time of just, he had great wins, but he also had bad losses. You know what I mean? Like, he still lost to Bowling Green and stuff like that. But he also brought in numerous of great players. But if he would have had a support that Pat Narduzzi has, I mean, that would have been crazy shit to watch. I just think that's how well of a coach that Dave Wanstead could have been. But when you had guys like Steve Peterson that were here, he was a jackass. The only good thing he ever did was get Pitt out of the Big East to the ACC. That's probably the only good thing he ever did. I mean, that's it. Nordenberg, the chancellor, he was a goof. He didn't understand the logic of athletics, and that's just dating back, but even before him as well, back to the 90s, the early 2000s. And then Dave Wanstead comes in and Walt Harris comes in, revitalizes it. Then he's out, he goes on. And then you have Dave Wanstead that comes in. And then, in my opinion, and from anybody that I've talked to, he would have never left. He would have never left. He'd have been here forever. And for how he recruited, I thought Pitt could have been very successful under him. But just stupidity at the top with Pitt absolutely was their downfall. It's always been their downfall. I mean, just if Pitt bought into the system of winning consistently, shit would blow up here. It would be through the roof, And again, in 26 and 27, you'll hear about stuff with the stadium and stuff like that. Joan Gable has called it a necessity. Alan Green's been there. They got to just focus on how to get Pitt out of the red in certain areas and the revenue sharing portion of things. There's just so much going on in terms of college athletics and what's going on at Pitt right now. But overall, I do think Narduzzi's coaching for his job this year. I mean, because you can't lose 6 in a row and feel comfort. I don't care if you were 7-0. I understand that there were major injuries, but even with Eli Holstein going out against Virginia, you should have still beat Virginia. There were bad calls in the Virginia game, but you still should have won that football game. That's another win right there. You should have beat Clemson. If the defense just holds, I mean, shit, we threw for over 350 yards. The defense was actually good all day besides the first drive of the game and the last drive of the game. You make a hold there, you win that game. That's 9 wins right there. You should have beat Boston College. So just it comes down to coaching, and these guys got to get better. And I think that the heat's on. Bringing in Alan Green just puts a twist on everything. If Heather was still here, I would say that he was totally safe. I mean, he'd have been in a bunker and he'd have been safe as could possibly be. But I think that he's coaching for his job, but also too, the way the college football is going, we could be sitting here in a year and he could be retiring for all I know. It just looks like there's a major push being happened right now from behind closed doors. Just my opinion. From a guy that's on the outside and just looking at things from a natural perspective, you can have a conversation that says, hey, is he on the verge of just calling it a day? Narduzzi is an old school coach. And if you guys want to know how Narduzzi used to coach, go back on YouTube and look at his coaching film from Michigan State. He was in your ass, and especially early on in his tenure at Pitt, too. You just can't coach players like that anymore because then they threaten to go in the portal right away. Now, I think that's not a way to coach. I think you can't be scared about that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a reality that comes into play where you have to coach a certain way, but you have to keep certain players in your roster. I mean, it's kind of how it works. It is what it is. I'll have to take a look here, Adam. I don't have any names, obviously, just because I've been so busy with work. Icy Light Mango, please sign up to Alliance 412. Today was a great day, and I'm proud to be a 412 Alliance member. Me and you both, brother. I can tell you this. It's been a good investment for me. I can tell you that. Guys, again, if you want to see your question pop up here, I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. I tell you guys this all the time. I see people getting upset. Put a super chat in, make a small donation to the pod, and I'll be able to see your question. And as I say that, a regular here, Will, puts in a super chat here. And Will, I appreciate you as always. Thank you. Do you think the coming revenue sharing rules will improve Pitt's competitiveness in recruiting and player retention? Will, yes. And the reason why is because now when all this comes into play, Alliance 412, when they bring everything in-house, tax deductible, it's going to blow up. And I think that when you have a guy like Chris Bickle goes to ESPN, an ESPN article, and says, we're going to be at the top of the line in revenue sharing, we're going to be on a national scale competitive. Again, you take his word for it. Chris Bickle is not a politician. He's not working for Pitt. He is on the outside looking in, and he runs businesses, and he's a winner. Look at his businesses that he started from the bottom up. I mean, he's an entrepreneur. He started the business at the bottom when nobody paid attention and grew it into being something successful. So I would certainly take his word for it. And I personally do believe it, because I think that these schools and these universities are going to start to understand that athletics, and I've said this for numerous years now, athletics, whether people like it or not, is the front porch to every university. When TCU went to the college football playoff, their applicants went through the roof. Look at Pitt, for instance. When you look at Pitt over the last 4 years, if you look at Pitt's numbers, their applicants have actually had record-breaking years, 4 consecutive years in a row. Pitt is on the incline. They're increasing people going to Pitt. They're doing a good job. Then you see West Virginia, where their overall attendance is going down. They're in the red. They're making major cuts because they're about to be $70 million in debt. They make cuts that they say will keep them from going to there. But at the end of the day, when you cut programs, you cut attendance. When attendance goes down and enrollment goes down, you lose money. It's just kind of how it works. It's just the reality of the situation. Then obviously, too, they've got a major issue as a prime example. Their athletic director, Ren Baker, called their stadium improvements a existential crisis because their stadium is so old and it needs actual work done. Look across the country on any on-campus stadium, any university right now, they're trying to put in club seats, suites, all kinds of stuff. I think that Pitt's in a perfect world where they're at Acrisure Stadium. I would expect the Steelers to probably get approved for. They're probably going to go with like a $500 to $550 million renovation of Acrisure Stadium because it needs it. It's embarrassing, and for a college stadium, it's fantastic. The venue is incredible. It's extremely loud, no matter who you have in there. The scenery, everything for college is great. For the NFL, in the closed end zone, how the hell do you have an NFL stadium with bleacher seating? I just that just puts me over the edge. But they need renovations to that place. They're going to get those renovations. I think that from everything that, and I could be wrong, who knows? Everything I've been told, there's going to become a parting of ways where they're going to have their own venue. Just what I've been told. So eventually, the Steelers will get their renovations. If you guys know David Morehouse, he was over with the Penguins. He got pulled over from there to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Rooneys and him will work together. He's a major, major factor involved with the Penguins getting their new arena and their new practice facility. A lot of that stuff's going to trickle over to the Steelers. It's coming. It's only a matter of time. Probably in the next couple of years you'll hear about it because the lease for Acrisure Stadium ends in 2030. It's got to be renewed. So that's a whole nother thing. So I think overall, it will help with player retention. But at the end of the day, though, look at the guys that Pitt's lost. They're guys that just want more playing time. The only significant loss that I've seen to this point is Sincere Edwards, which I think is a big loss because we need defensive ends. The one position you didn't want to lose a guy. You know what I mean? The defensive end position right now is depleted. They need to go in the portal and grab guys at defensive end. It's that simple. They gotta get after it. And again, the kid from Utah State, Blaine, what's his name? Blaine Spires. What's his name here? I got his name. Yeah, Blaine Spires. I think the kid would be great here. I mean, just go watch his tape. The kid's a fiend. I think he'd be great here. Just got to land him now. That's kind of what it comes down to. That's a guy to watch out for. But overall, the player retention, Pitt's done a good job at player retention. It's going into the portal and getting the right guys that fit your system. The ones that you can put at your defensive line and say, hey, this kid, we're bringing him in. He's a for sure guy that I know is going to dominate the defensive line. Not a guy like, I appreciate all the hard work Nate Matlack did, but it was so frustrating to watch tape on him because he was always so close. He was so close because the pressures. He created so much pressure, but he never finished the play. He just never finished the play, ever. So that was hard to watch. But they need to go in the portal and get the guys that will be able to come in here, compete, and produce at a high level, like any other university across the board. Another super chatter, Joe String. Thank you, sir, for the super chat as always. JJ, I'm with Icy Mango, using super chat to reiterate the need for fans and alum to join Alliance 412. Excited to see core guys coming back. Grateful for the show and coverage of Pitt football. Hail to Pitt. Joe, thank you for the support of the show and the podcast. Beyond thankful. I agree. Look, there will be people that disagree with me. I saw them today. I don't do that self-pity stuff. I don't have that loser mentality, that kind of stuff. I just push to the wayside. But at the end of the day, it's either you support Alliance 412 to acquire better players to win more games, or you don't support it and you go through the same exact shit, if not worse, next year. That's kind of what that is the God's honest truth, guys. I can't give you any more of the flashiness or the politically correct answer. That is the God's honest truth. You either support it and you have a chance to be successful, or you don't, and it's going to fall apart quick. It's just kind of how it is. And like with anything else, look around the country. When coaches leave, you're going to get guys that hit the portal. Look at Tennessee. Look at Ohio State. They're all in the college football playoff. Look at the amount of players they're losing right now. They've lost more players than Pitt. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's a give and take. The portal, they always say the portal taketh, the portal giveth. You know what I mean? It's a double-edged sword. There's good and bad about it. But you got to have coaches that are aggressive. You got to have coaches that want this shit. They got to want it. One thing I always loved about Kirby Smart, he always tells his players, you got to want this shit like I want it. You got to want to eat. You got to want to eat. And I think right now the Pitt has a core of guys that are currently there that want to be successful, but they need more guys. They need more depth. We're looking in live time. The teams that do well have the most depth, and they develop talent. I think Pitt does a good job of developing talent, but they need more depth because we're watching a team overall that lost its depth or lost its starters, and then the shit fell apart. I mean, it was just like we were riding sky high, and it went right down the wayside. I mean, Branson Taylor gets hurt. Shit. Then we're playing musical chairs on the offensive line, trying to implement people. Then Cooper gets hurt. Then we're throwing guys into there. Then we're trying to figure out, okay, so we move Ryan Bader left tackle. Who can we put at right tackle? Well, when you're putting redshirt freshmen at right tackle, you're going to get mixed bag of results. And then Jackson Brown, who I think is actually a damn good offensive tackle, the transfer out of Cal, who's by far, I think, between him and Ryan Bader, probably one of the two biggest offensive linemen. His first starts against Clemson and a defensive end that's going to be a day one pick. I mean, shit, that's tough. You know what I mean? There's got to be some type of a learning curve. They need actual reps. I understand. Fans are upset. They get all pissed off. I get it. But I got to be real with you guys. Like, they need time to adjust. They need time to be able to get reps. You cannot replicate game reps in practice. I don't care what you do. Yes, if you're running your scout team and you got a lot of guys that are really, really good on your scout team that are, because you have depth, you can work those guys in there. But there's just nothing like game reps. There's nothing like it. And it doesn't matter if it's a transfer from somewhere else or a guy that's on your team. When you're in the game and you're prepping and you're playing, it's unlike anything else because the shit that happens in the game is completely different than what happens in practice. In practice, it's scripted. I can throw a bunch of different stuff at you. I can say, okay, here's what I expect. If you see this, do this. If you see that, do that. But in a game, that kid needs to make his own decision. There needs to be a complete line across the board at offensive line and communication. Offense is hard enough. I think defense is easier because you can work in cohesion from the back to the front. In the offensive side of the football, if you're offset and someone doesn't do their job, you're screwed. I mean, the play is completely funky. It's gone. There's a lot of things that need to go forward. So while I don't disagree with fans being upset, 100%, there was a lot of stupid stuff that Pat Narduzzi did yesterday that he's done for 10 years. And you just look at yourself and I was watching it and I even tweeted, I'm like, this is like next level stupidity. It's annoying. Will he ever fix it? Probably not. But the best thing we can do is get better players to where we're not in that shit again, because if it happens again, he's gonna mess up again. It's coming. I'm gonna be able to sit here right now and tell you, if there's a situation like we saw yesterday next year, the all likelihood is that he's gonna mess up again. It's kind of how it is at this point. It's a lot like James Franklin, where he just finds ways to go for it in times and periods of games that make no sense. If SMU was actually had a quarterback that was decent against them, it probably would have backfired on Penn State when they went for it on their own 25 and they're up by 10, 15 points. You just have coaches that just outthink themselves. Also, Cade Bell, it's 3rd down and 1 at the 1 yard line. You're down by 3. You score a tutty. The game's over. Why are we putting Gavin Bartholomew, a quarterback, to throw a pass to a defensive tackle? I mean, I'm all about being creative, but I'm not about being stupid. I mean, I don't. Sometimes it's just very simple. I've got a quarterback in Julian Duggar who's 6'4", can run people over, dive, extend, anything. I mean, why not just run that? And then you get a 4th down play, and then he kicks a field goal. It's difficult to even talk about it. But at the end of the day, the only thing we can do as fans is support the program because you need better players, and understand if it happens again, there will be changes coming because Pitt needs to win. Pitt needs to be successful to keep the influx of revenue. That's a fact. And the people that are at the top right now want to win. That's a fact. So thank you, sir, as always, for your support for the show. And obviously, too, if you're not a member of Alliance 412, I suggest doing it today. Let's see here. Pittman, go Pitt, 17-12. What's holding Pitt back? Pat and Arduzzi right now. I'm just being honest with you. Bad offensive line play. The defensive line needing help. I mean, that's what's holding them back. Competent decision making. That's kind of what's holding them back. But I agree. They do have good skill guys. But you got to put it together. You can't just be good on one side or the other. It has to be cohesion. You got to put it all together all at the same time. You know, right now it just hasn't happened. For one reason or the other, whether it's the play on the field or the guys coaching. It's one or the other. Matt, end of the day, he's a Pittsburgh kid, and Pitt gave him a chance. Think he'll stay true to us. I agree. If Pribula was able to make $1.5 million in the portal, would have to think Duggar could fetch a bag next season, but agree to the hometown loyalty. I mean, brother, he's not going to get that much. I mean, he played one game against, I think he's got potential through the roof, but he played one game against Toledo. Pribula, that's a different level. I mean, he played against a number of different Power 5 teams, and that's why he got what he got. That's why Eli Holstein got what he got. Let's see here. Oh, that's a great one. Juan Price was a monster. Oh, the things I would do to have a Juan Price back on this defense and what he could have done. I mean, that'd have been so much fun. Watching tape on Charlotte transfer reminds me of Josh Cornley up at Oregon. Lots of strength and great ability. I agree. That was a great pickup. We fought off Michigan State. That last little get-go. We made a good offer. Kendall accepted it. Kendall's going to be a really good addition here. JJ's an OU fan. College football broke me, but have my like. Pitt tough guy about the Pelusi stuff. I mean, there's a lot of griping going on in there that I don't agree with. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I think he was a Heather fan, all kinds of stuff going on there. That's a lot of he said, she said kind of stuff. I'm not really sure. I'll have to be versed up on that. But from what I heard, it's kind of a little bit of a spout between two individuals. I'm not really worried about that. If he retires, who would you look at? Give me a little bit of time. Give me a little bit of time after the season. We'll have a live show, or I'll have a recorded show on that down the road. We'll talk about that then. Was Pitt in the market for Pribula? No, because we have Eli Holstein. I can respect Edwards leaving for a bigger bag, but just the days of recommitting with a new NIL deal is Bush League. It reeks of amateur agents representing these kids. Yeah, at the end of the day, dude, if he's going to come back 2 or 3 times looking to renegotiate, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be a problem going forward. So you might as well just cut it loose. At the end of the day, I mean, I was telling you guys here for weeks. I've heard it for a couple weeks now that there's going to be issues there. If you don't donate, you have no right to complain. Adam, I agree 100%. The reality is, if you're a fan of the sport, you'd be silly not to contribute to Alliance 412, even if it's a few bucks a month. I agree. I do the 412, the $41.20 a month, obviously the 412 level. But hell, I've said before, guys, if we had every season ticket holder donate $20 a month, we would generate over $6 million on top of what we have now, which is roughly the budget they said between the ESPN articles, like $5.5 million in that range. It's just a fact. It's all there. Donated my entire Christmas bonus to Alliance 412 this year. Well, almost all of it. Got a couple cases of Icy Light, too. That's pretty awesome. Well, that's very nice of you. Well, again, appreciate you for being a donor. The success of Pitt has a lot of, can thank you a lot of it because it's the people that donate to the Alliance 412. It's the donors, man, paying this stuff up. And fans deserve credit for that. When people donate to Alliance 412, I'm going to show credit to it because you're giving your own money to it. So, Pitt, man, I appreciate it, man. The young O-lineman can contribute right away and are rare and exclusively on the blue blood rosters. Yeah, I agree. Definitely some questionable moments throughout the year, capped off by the end of the bowl. Yeah. And again, a lot of dumb stuff happened yesterday where Pitt should have still won the game. But guys, when you're down to your fourth and fifth quarterback, I mean, be realistic. If Eli Holstein plays that game, Pitt wins easily. If Nate Yarnell plays that game, Pitt wins easily. If Julian Duggar plays the full game, they win that game easily. It is what it is. But then again, it's a meaningless bowl game. It was a bad bowl game anyways. Who cares? Bell Cap called a much better game last night, but he got way too cute on a few plays and dudes didn't override it. Inexcusable across the board. Yeah, at the end of the day, man, with a fourth-string quarterback and a fifth-string quarterback, we still put 30 points on a team in regulation. I mean, and a bunch of that, not even just that, Kanate Mumfield wasn't there last night as well. You had backups on the offensive line. At the end of the day, they certainly scored enough points. I was more disappointed in the defense. And also, too, the defense not getting one stop in 6 overtimes. I mean, holy shit. I mean, not one stop. I mean, that was beyond infuriating. Before you end the live show, give us your top 3 wish list for portal gets. For the people, JJ, is it true our guys took nurses? I don't know who that means. Is it true our guys took buses back from Detroit? No, they flew, Kyle. I can promise you that, buddy. They flew. The top 3 wish list. I'm not going to give you names because then people will start to just freak out over names. There's a bunch of guys out there, but very simple. Offensive line and defensive line. That's where we're at. That's where it is at this point. Offensive line and defensive line. That's what Pitt fans need to be focused on. That's a fact. Well, guys, I don't see any more super chats. I appreciate Zach, Will, and Joe String for the super chats tonight. I appreciate all of you for the great comments and questions. Obviously, all night, we're a little bit over an hour. Right now, we have over 563 people in here in the live show between X and YouTube. It has it's pretty cool how I get live stream up here. It shows both of them on the screen here, which is pretty cool. It boggles my mind how close DN's got home all season. This is a great. I got to answer this one here. This is a great question. This is a great response, Will. It boggles my mind how close the defensive ends got home all season and didn't. That cost us a few games for sure, including the bowl. I agree. I mean, just how like Nate Matlack was so close. He technically could have had 13, 14 sacks. He just couldn't complete the play. I mean, it's like the kid, I was rooting for him so hard because he was just so close, but he would just come in totally out of control, not break down and make a tackle, and then just immediately the quarterback would break contain and be able to run, scamper for yardage, or extend the play and throw a ball down the field. Just hurtful. Also, too, this is a great one. And, guys, let me know. I'm going to try to get Ben Sauls on here for an interview because I think he's just a great character, man. He's probably one of the best kickers of all time at Pitt. Ben Sauls was such a weapon this year. How are we looking at kicker in 25? If you guys haven't seen, we actually got a 5-star commit through the transfer portal for a kicker next year. I don't have his name. I did see it, though. We have another kicker coming in. He's a damn good kicker, man. A very big leg, 5-star commit. So that's really good. So we have another kicker coming in. But I got to get Ben Sauls on the show. I think that'll be a really good interview, I think. And maybe even do it live, which would be pretty cool to see the fans overall. That would be really cool to get Ben Sauls on here. And again, I love Ben Sauls, man. That guy, the confidence, man. And the guy, I wish Pat Narduzzi at the end of regulation yesterday would have given him a shot at that 64-yard field goal. Oh, my God, that would have been awesome. Need Sauls in the pod. Great show. JJ, Happy New Year, brother. Again, thank you guys. James London, a freshman kicker today. Yes. Guys, appreciate you. Merry Christmas. 2 solid additions to our locker room. I agree. Pittman Zach Sauls is going to a long, prosperous career in the NFL. I agree. Guys, I don't see any more super chats in there, so I'm good there. Guys, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I hope you truly spend it with your families or important people in your life. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you guys. I appreciate all the support of the show. We've got so much more in the coming year. If you have not done so, like this video, subscribe to the show, player interviews, more topics on the ACC, coaching searches, college ball playoff analysis. We're going to be doing all that stuff on here, so make sure you subscribe to the show to get the notifications when I drop a live show or I drop recorded shows, because a lot more recorded shows are going to be coming up this week as I'm off from work all week. So it's going to be a lot more stuff coming this week. So, guys, God bless you guys. I love you guys. Cannot thank you enough for the support as always. Hope you have a great holiday. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe. I want you guys to have a prosperous new year, a very successful new year. Embrace the highs and the lows. Thank God for the successful times and for the bad times, because great men were never built in times of comfort. They were built in times of adversity and lots of difficulty, to say the least. So God bless you guys. Also, too, I'll leave you with this to start the new year. I used to read a quote every day, but I memorized it to where I say it every day before I go to work. It's from Winston Churchill. It is success. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Keep that with you guys. Guys, as always and forever, hail to Pitt and hail to the ACC. I'll see you guys next time.